Hello, beer drinkers. On the docket tonight is the Pipeworks Lizard King Mosaic Hopped Pale Ale. Pipeworks is a very new brewery from Chicago that I've enjoyed quite a bit. They focus on a bunch of different kinds of hoppy beers. Just started doing cans last summer. They also do a lot of very interesting, abnormally spiced and flavored beers, like beers that use normal sushi roll ingredients, and beers that use things like celery seed and cucumber and all that. But this one is just a year-round regular Mosaic Pale Ale that they just started making last year and now is available pretty consistently in cans. When I was in Chicago over the holidays, I got this one from the Beer Temple in Chicago. And then I looked up the batch dates, and this one was canned on the 22nd of December, which means that it is now just 15 days old. And I had it several times. I got a 4-pack of this from the batch before when I first got into the Chicago area and liked it a lot. And actually was able to taste that right next to the Night Shift Whirlpool, which is their Mosaic Session IPA or Session Pale Ale. And I found that this one is a little bit more intense, and I actually liked it a little bit more, but it's a different kind of beer. It's not 4.5% alcohol. This is 6%, and it's not super hazy. It's got a fair amount of bitterness, but I would probably agree that it's mostly a pale ale and not quite an IPA. And I'm pretty excited about doing a review of this. And also, I've always been excited about trying this because Mosaic is one of my favorite hops. And they bring out the very juicy quality very well in this, from what I remember. This might be one of the cans that perhaps partially froze in my freezer, but it feels okay. I think it should be okay. Usually, if I found a beer that I leave in the freezer, if you just put it in the fridge and let it completely defrost slowly in the fridge, it's going to be usually just about fine, unless it really has exploded. But if you freeze a beer, don't open it right when it's still frozen, because then it's just going to be ruined. Sounded fine. I can smell it already. And it's not super hazy. Yeah, the carbonation is still very nice. And that looks rather beautiful in this glass. But it's pretty narrow glass, but you can see pretty clearly through it still. And even when I pour on the bottom of it, I don't think there's much yeast and sediment that'll make it cloudier. But it ends up being, I think, a little bit like a New England style IPA. The smell is just intensely tropical fruity. It smells like pineapple juice and mangoes and apricots and peaches. I just had a peach Berliner Weiss before doing this review, and it reminds me of that peachiness, except that peach Berliner Weiss, the Smut Labs one in particular, was very much like peach rings. This has a little bit of peach rings quality to it, but I have a feeling it's not going to be quite as sweet and not nearly as sour, because this isn't a sour beer. But it smells very good, even through all this foam. It's got a little bit of a powdery Smarties, kind of marshmallowy sweetness, yeastiness to it, that I think comes from a combination of the yeast, sort of fruity esters mixed with the intensely candied citrus and tropical fruit hops. But it's pretty heavenly, and it reminds me of maybe some Trillium things. But what I don't get in this, as I do with a lot of New England beers, is that very green vegetal, oniony, scallion, or smoky arugula or anything qualities, or dankness. Maybe there's a hint of resin, but this is just super, super juicy. all about the fruit and the aroma. It might get a little funkier as I drink it and it warms up. Sometimes that happens. But it smells like a delicious fruit cocktail. Mm. Yes, it's all those fruits and a little bit sweet, but there's a chalky, like Smarties dryness the hops bring into play. It makes it finish very nicely, and it's very juicy, even though it's not hazy and doesn't get that fuller body from the haziness to affect the juiciness a little bit in the feel of the mouth. Mm. The finish is very nice and chocolatey and dry, but juicy flavors linger. But just with every tropical fruit that's pinky, orange, and yellow, it's apricot-y. It's not actually that orangey. A lot of these beers have some kind of orange flavor coming into play, whether it's clementine or some sort of nectarine, or orange peel, but this is decidedly in the tropical fruit spectrum. But there's a little bit of that earthy blueberry mosaic in there too. Mm. It's just all the fruitiness of mosaic hops come out in this beer so well. And if they had made it more bitter, more intense, stronger, it might have been a little bit greener, bringing out some of the oniony, vegetal, grassy qualities that are sometimes in mosaic hops. But as with just about every hop, depends on how you use it. The yeast, everything that's surrounded by also affects the aromas and things that come out of it. And there's still some body to this. And the bitterness is pretty subdued. Though my friend, who's not really into IPAs and things, he did like the Night Shift Whirlpool that was much lower alcohol and lower bitterness than this one. And did note that this has that little bit of astringency and bitterness that hop-forward beers basically always have, except for things like Whirlpool and certain session pale ales that do something that's pretty special. But this is able to just amp up that tropical fruity quality and the aroma, make it really intense. Maybe there's a little bit of a Cheerios malt, but it's not quite toasty, just a little grainy, maybe crackery. And it's very, very pale. I don't know, they probably could have gotten this maybe a tad paler, but especially since it is not super hazy, the color looks even paler. Let's finish that up, and this is pretty perfectly carbonated, and the head is nice and finely bubbled and creamy. And I think maybe there's a little more carbonation at first. I traveled with this can on the plane, and then this might be the one that got a little frozen, but it's still extremely enjoyable. No real flaws in this beer. It just does that special thing where it smells like some tropical fruit, hard candies, Smarties, and all that. But then it's not sweet, and it's not actually like drinking fruit juice. It's chalky, a little bit bitter. Now I'm starting to notice a little bit of the bitterness, but it's not harsh. There's not really a pine acrid, high astringency to it. I don't know what malts they use with this. They don't really describe it much except for saying it's a Mosaic Pale Ale, but I have a feeling it could just be just pale malt. Well, for anyone who loves very aromatic, juicy IPAs and loves or pale ales and just loves Mosaic hops, this is up there with all of them. This is up there with a lot of the great ones from New England. It doesn't have the intense fresh green quality to it, but that's a lot of people don't like that. And yeah, it's not green peppery jalapeno or any of that. There's just a little bit of chalky, slight maybe smokiness to it. And a tinge of spiciness, not quite clove. What slowly builds up. But nothing that someone would smell and think, ugh, this smells like sweat. Like I have some friends who think that those oniony green qualities in some pale ales is kind of like sweat, but I still like that, and some of my friends still like that. But this, if this is sweat, it's probably the sweat of someone who's only been eating mangoes and pineapples and drinking guava puree juice all the time. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one an 8.5. I don't know, 8.75. It's very nice, and I think I got a 4-pack of this Tall Boys for $9 or $10, and it wasn't hard to come upon. You just have to make sure it's fresh. But even I had a 4-pack of these that I bought that I'm sure were at least a week or two older than Night Shift Whirlpools, and they still had a great strong aroma. So let's say Pipeworks. Pipeworks Lizard King Mosaic Pale is 8.75. It is just all Mosaic and all of its juicy glory in a very pleasant package. Goodbye.